Hello, welcome to Tile Coach. Today we're going to be installing a custom shower niche with a paper face mosaic. And this is a really intricate mosaic that has a wave to it, and to me it has a really nice organic feel. It's going to pair up nicely with the shower that has a pebble shower pan. This is a paper face mosaic. I've seen these installed the wrong way. Sometimes people put the paper face down in the thinset, which is wrong. Make sure if it's a paper face that the paper's facing out. So with this wavy design, we went ahead and pre-cut everything. I took my measurements, laid it out on the table, took a square and a straight edge and made all of my cuts. And with this glass tile, we use a couple different techniques. One, we use the Montolit snap cutter to score and snap some of the pieces, and that worked well on the short side of the cuts. And then the long side of the cuts, where we need to make the rips, we actually used the wet saw and just grinded off little bits at a time. We couldn't cut straight through it because it just wanted to snap the little glass tiles. So you also have to be very careful when using glass. Watch for your eyes, watch for your hands. You can get cut. Luckily, we haven't had any blood on our stuff yet. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and use this. What we're using is Ardex X5 to install the sheet mosaic. You want to use a nice sticky tacky thinset like X5 or Multimax Light, although Multimax Light might be a little messy. Ardex X5 works great. Pro Light would work good. Laticrete Tri-Light would be another good option. So I'm using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch trowel, and I have my thinset mixed up to a pretty thick consistency. It's got good body to it. You don't want it to be runny. You want it to be so it'll stand up and not sag. And so I'm going to start out by combing 1/4 inch notch, and this is over Gold Bond EXP backer. This isn't purple board. I know it's purple, but it's Gold Bond fiberglass matte waterproof board. I'm just getting a good notch. Trying not to make too big of a mess on my tiles with my plops. And I'm making sure I'm getting my thinset all the way around the edges, because I don't want those little pieces on the end to end up falling out because there's not enough thinset in the corners. I'm going all the way to the corner. And I'm going to knock this 1/4 inch notch trowel down. I'm holding it a little bit flat. I'm not going at a 45 so that I can take some of the thinset off. Get my plops out of there. You can see also on my niches, I like to have the bottom sill piece in so that my back stacks on top of it and my sides stack on top of it. So we're going to go ahead and put the glass, and then these cuts will butt into the glass. But I don't like my sill piece butting into the back wall. I like to have that lap where the tile's sitting on top of it. It makes for a cleaner joint right here over time. Okay, so once I have a pretty good 1/4 inch notch on here, you want to take the flat part of your trowel and you want to knock this down. You don't want any ridges with a clear glass mosaic because it will show through the back, because that's the point of a paper face mosaic. They can be clear glass. They don't have to have that frosted painted backing. So the glass is clear. Anything behind it, you will see through the glass. So I'm going to take my flat side of my trowel and I will knock this down to make it flat. So I'm not trying to take any thinset off. I'm just trying to collapse those ridges and have a nice even bed. You see, I didn't really take much thinset off. And then we'll try it this way. That's all the thinset I took off there. So that's pretty good. I have a few tiny little air bubbles, but those are going to smash down when I put the glass in there. So that's the technique you want to use. Completely flat thinset behind it, no ridges. And since we have everything pre-cut, I'm actually going to start on the right side. I've labeled them, and we're going to go. This side should go all the way to the right. So if you have the right bed of thinset, you can see I'm pushing it in, and it's staying. It's not sagging. It's the right amount of thinset. And then I gotta make sure I got the right spacing off the bottom. Middle. Oh, that was this guy. Here and here. So this has to go up. Get my bottom cuts in there. So there's the first sheet. Let's go. These guys. Middle sheet. So again, you can use a grout float or something to tamp these in. Small areas I like to use my hands because then I can feel any little individual tiles. And I'm pretty much pushing every little tile in. Some more cuts on the bottom. So it needs to come down. And the right side. And it's really hard to cut these with the paper on them on a wet saw. It just doesn't work out very well. They usually end up breaking. You can't see where it's cutting. And then once you get the sheet wet, everything starts falling apart. And so you want to keep your main sheets dry when you're setting them. And that's why that snap cutter, the Montolet, really worked for all these shortcuts, because it kept, that's one of the, not only was it quick and easy, but it kept the sheets dry so that they didn't fall apart. And these individual tiles, sometimes what I do is I soak them and get the paper off of them, and it just saves me a step when I go to adjust everything. I don't have to peel off you know, the individual, because sometimes you go to peel those off and it moves everything and wants to peel the tile off too. So yeah, so if the paper's wet, you know, the paper will just come right off of it. And this paper face isn't meant to sit on there till the thinset cures. We just want to let it set up enough, usually about 20-30 minutes. We want to let this sit before we get it wet and pull the paper, because you want to be able to adjust them while they're still pliable. See, I got a little thinset oozing out, which I try to avoid, but you know, sometimes it happens. But here I'm good. I don't have any thinset oozing out of the joints. That 1/4 inch notch was just the right amount of thinset. Okay, got the bottom right. Yeah, it's really nice having the sides not on here yet, because I have, you can see I have wiggle room here. This cut doesn't have to be perfect, and it'll make a cleaner finish on the edges with this field tile butting into the back. See, that's how the paper peels off when it's wet. So since these were cut on the wet side, the paper just peels right off. So yeah, the individual pieces, it's nice to just get that paper off so that you don't have to do it while it's up on the wall. Last piece. There we go. Okay, so I did pretty good. A little bit of thinset oozing out in a few places. Here. Yeah, so here's the part that a lot of people miss, is that you have to do this while the tiles are still workable, because you want to be able to get the glass off, or get the paper off and adjust it. So try not to soak too much water into your sponge. You don't want water dripping and running down into the grout joints, because that weakens the bond of the thinset. So I'm just I usually do a few passes So let the paper soak in, but you'll be able to tell when it's time. The paper will get darker and it'll peel off real easy. The first time I did this, I'm not gonna lie, I left the paper on and came back the next day and it was a nightmare getting it off, and then I had to pop tiles and adjust them because you could see the sheet lines. They were just squares. It was just a 1x1. That's the first one. This was probably back in like 2003, right when I was first starting. Remember I did a backsplash and left the paper on there, and all the squares, you could see the sheet lines, so I had to pop out all the tiles around the sheet lines and adjust it to make it look right. But you live and learn. You guys can learn from my mistakes. Don't leave the paper on. And yeah, I used to get a lot of calls from people who had, an installer that put the paper in backwards. They used to not say it in Spanish. Now they have Spanish instructions on here too. This says mount this side out. They say it in Spanish too. And that has helped because a lot of our installers are Hispanic and they don't read English. And so, yeah, I'd get calls from people and they'd say, my tiles are falling out, and they send me a picture and literally the paper was into the thinset on the wrong. I go, oh yeah, it's installed backwards. See, little pieces, they're gonna fall out and you'll have to put them back in. You see, I'm just letting that paper soak really good. You can give it a little pressure and that helps the water get all the way through the paper. And they've gotten better with their adhesive that they use for the paper too. The early ones, there was some pretty bad, there were some pretty bad days of trying to peel a paper and it was just adhered so well that no matter how wet you got it, it was still ripping the tiles off of it. Okay, so I'm going to start and just see a little test. So yeah, that's peeling off. So I've learned that as you go, this one's kind of unique because it's not just a square sheet. You kind of can peel at an angle and try to peel down away. Don't try to pull straight out, but if you pull down, it seems to come off better. But you can see that just reveals a beautiful iridescent glass tile with no mesh behind it. It's just clear. This is Sonoma Tile Makers. If you want to look it up, Sonoma Tile Makers. We are a dealer of their products, but so if you're local, I can get you this tile or similar. I think there's like 20 different colors in this glass line. We use it a lot. You'll see it a lot in my videos. Yeah, it's a tile company right here in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. And they do handmade tiles, they do glass tiles. But I think they have a nationwide presence. You could probably find a dealer wherever you're at. Yeah, that's how the paper comes off. See if I can get this one off too. Yeah, and see, just that little extra time sitting, it comes out from this sheet to that sheet. You can just let it sit a little bit, it'll come right off. It's really important though, because now I'm going to need to go back and make sure everything's, there's no tiles that are looking out of place. You can adjust them. Get these little pieces of paper off. But again, I just love how this has just a really organic flow to it. There's not really straight lines. It reminds me of the ocean. Ocean waves. It's really fun when my clients let me do the designs. You know, obviously they're doing the final choice, but I get to present things that I like, and you know, it's like a work of art. Using a shower as a work of art. Yeah, really, you end up touching almost every tile when you do this, just to make sure it's consistent. I like to say consistently inconsistent, right? Because there's no straight lines on this tile, and they're irregular shapes, and yeah, there's no real gauge to go off. You just got to make sure it's, you know, the spacing is consistent, and overall there's nothing that stands out. You know, there's not one tile that's different than the others. So yeah, and then I got the last little piece that fell off, this little guy. So put that little guy right in there, put him back home, and that should be good. You know, these I got a few little areas where thinset oozed out, so I'll clean that up. But yeah, we have a beautiful glass niche, and that's really gonna add to the design of this shower. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you need help on your shower project, make sure to check out our coaching plans. I put them up there to help you complete your shower or other tile projects. So check it out. Last but not least, I love you. I love being your tile coach. We'll see you on the next video.